Earth had always been a peaceful place, its people blissfully unaware of the greater dangers lurking in the vastness of space. But all of that was about to change. A sudden, eerie quiet fell over the world as strange signals began to echo across Earth's communication systems. Something was coming, something that humanity was not prepared for. In the midst of routine life, a massive, mysterious object appeared in Earth's atmosphere, its size unimaginable. It was only for a brief moment, but the sight of it was enough to send a chill down the spine of anyone who happened to look up. The object was massive, larger than any aircraft or spacecraft humanity had ever seen. It was cloaked, shimmering in and out of visibility, and the air around it seemed to distort. The first signs of something truly otherworldly had arrived. Then, out of nowhere, a strange transmission cut through the chaos of Earth's radio waves. It was brief but clear, a series of sharp, metallic words in an unknown language. It was a warning. The Zorvans are coming. The message was intercepted by Earth's military, and the response was swift. Every major government and military base on the planet scrambled to figure out what to do. There was a sense of unease as the realization set in. Earth wasn't prepared for an invasion. No one had ever thought that such an advanced civilization would target them, and even if they did, humanity was still far behind in terms of technology. Among the chaos, Commander Jack Holt, the leader of Earth's most elite military squadron, received the first transmission. He was a battle-hardened veteran, his face lined with years of experience, and his reputation as a strategic genius was well known. He was always calm in the face of adversity, but this was something new. His hands trembled ever so slightly as he read the message again. The Zorvans. He had heard of them in passing, an alien race so advanced that their very name made seasoned generals uneasy. They had conquered entire star systems, their ships equipped with technology that outmatched anything humanity had ever known. Their cloaking devices could make their ships invisible, and their AI-driven war machines were capable of calculating strategies far faster than any human mind could. As Commander Jack Holt stood at the command center, he couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was in grave danger. Humanity had never faced anything like this. He knew his forces were outmatched. There was no denying that. But he wasn't ready to give up just yet. He turned to his team of elite soldiers, all handpicked for their extraordinary skills, and began to formulate a plan. The Zorvans' arrival wasn't like a classic invasion. They weren't coming in with massive numbers of ships attacking cities at once. No, they were far more cunning than that. They had cloaked their entire fleet, hiding in the vast emptiness of space. The first ship to arrive was so silent, so stealthy, that Earth didn't even know it was there until it had already positioned itself above the planet, well out of reach of any defenses. Jack's team was being tasked with preparing for the unknown. The military was scrambling to figure out how to detect the invisible enemy. Earth's defense systems had been designed to fight conventional threats, but this was something new. The Zorvans were masters of stealth, and with their ability to make their ships disappear, Earth's radar systems were useless. The first few hours were filled with confusion. People on the ground had no idea what was happening, but the military knew that every second counted. Satellites scrambled to get a glimpse of the ships, but they couldn't track anything. The Zorvans had designed their technology to evade detection. Every move they made was covered in layers of deception. It was a silent invasion. Inside Earth's command center, Jack stared at the screen, his mind racing through every possibility. He had dealt with numerous threats in his career, but nothing like this. He knew that if humanity was going to survive, they would have to think outside the box. The Zorvans might have technology that was decades, if not centuries, ahead of Earth's, but Jack had something the Zorvans didn't: the will to fight. As Jack assembled his team, he reflected on the history of humanity. From the dawn of civilization to the technological marvels of today, humanity had always risen to meet challenges. But this was different. There was no room for error, no time to make mistakes. The Zorvans weren't here for negotiation. They didn't care about peace. They were here to conquer, to crush Earth beneath their boots. The tension in the room was palpable as the team worked to prepare. Jack knew that the coming battle would be unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. He couldn't afford to let fear take hold. His soldiers trusted him, and he had to be the one to lead them through the storm. He had to be the one to show them that humanity, despite its flaws, had the heart to fight back. It wasn't long before Jack received an urgent update. The Zorvan fleet had just made its move. Without warning, the massive cloaked ship above Earth deactivated its invisibility shield, revealing its true size. It wasn't just one ship. It was a whole fleet, hidden right under their noses. The first ship's appearance triggered an immediate wave of panic among Earth's leaders. The silence of the invasion was broken, and the full weight of what was happening began to sink in. The military scrambled to launch countermeasures, but it was already too late. The Zorvans had already established their presence above the planet. Their ships were poised to strike, their weapons ready, their AI systems coordinating an attack that Earth could not possibly predict. Jack's mind was already working overtime, trying to figure out how to counteract the Zorvans' superior technology. He knew that humanity's only chance was to use their creativity, their resilience, and their ability to adapt. They might be outnumbered, they might be underpowered, but Jack believed one thing: humans had the drive to survive. They had the will to fight. As the clock ticked down, the world held its breath. The Zorvans' silent invasion had begun, and humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of a few brave souls willing to take a stand. The battle had only just started, and Earth's greatest fight was about to unfold. Jack could feel it in his bones. This was no ordinary war. It was the fight for the survival of humanity. The tension built as the minutes dragged on, each one bringing humanity closer to an uncertain future. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as the first wave of Zorvan drones began their descent from the sky, making their move against a planet that had no idea how to stop them. Earth wasn't ready, but Commander Jack Holt and his team of elite soldiers, they were ready to give everything they had. The invasion was just beginning, and Earth was about to learn that it had no choice but to fight back, no matter how impossible the odds. It happened faster than anyone could have anticipated. The first strike came not with the roar of rockets or the massive explosions of space battles, but with the eerie silence of the Zorvans' cloaked ships reactivating above Earth. The quiet before the storm shattered, and the skies erupted into chaos. As the Zorvans dropped out of their cloaking, their ships unleashed a terrifying barrage of laser fire, sending shockwaves through Earth's defenses. The planet's military had prepared for an attack, but they were expecting a conventional assault. Something they could track, something they could fight back against. They weren't prepared for this. Earth's defense systems, despite being advanced for human standards, were helpless against the overwhelming might of the Zorvans. The alien ships seemed to materialize out of nowhere, unleashing drone forces that swooped down with deadly precision. Earth's anti-aircraft systems barely had time to engage before drones struck, their weapons cutting through cities, creating massive craters in seconds. Buildings that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble in a heartbeat. The Zorvans weren't just attacking, they were demonstrating their power, making sure Earth knew just how outmatched they were. The first wave came in silently, and then it was chaos. Sirens blared, people screamed in panic, and military forces scrambled to respond. But it was clear, Earth wasn't ready. In the midst of the destruction, Commander Jack Holt and his elite team found themselves engaged in the thick of the battle. The humans fought bravely, but they were faced with a terrifying array of alien technology that was far beyond anything Earth had ever known. They could hear the whir of the alien drones as they descended, their robotic forms gleaming under the light of a fiery sky. The ground shook with each blast as the first wave of alien drones struck with devastating precision. Jack's squad fought with all their might, but even their advanced weaponry felt like little more than toys against the invaders. The alien drones were relentless, their robotic soldiers marching forward with ruthless efficiency, each of them stronger and faster than the humans could have imagined. The team quickly realized just how outmatched they were. Their weapons couldn't pierce the drone's armor, and the Zorvan's drones moved with an agility that outstripped anything human technology had ever achieved. Jack's team fought back fiercely, each soldier pushing themselves beyond their limits, but they were being overwhelmed. The drones moved in sync, almost like they were part of a single hive mind. Their lasers were merciless, cutting down anything in their path. Jack's squad had no time to rest. Every second was a struggle for survival. The squad was engaged in brutal close-quarters combat, dodging blasts and trading fire with the alien drones. It was chaos, and they were outnumbered. One of Jack's soldiers, Bonner, fell first. The Zorvan drone's laser struck him directly in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. His body didn't stand a chance against the superior technology. Jack didn't have time to grieve. He shouted orders, urging his team to keep moving, to keep fighting. But the truth was undeniable. They were losing. Fast. Another soldier, Miller, managed to disable one of the drones temporarily by using a makeshift EMP device, but the victory was short-lived. Before they could take advantage of the momentary lull, more drones came crashing down from the sky, forcing Jack's team to retreat into the shadows of a destroyed building. Their ammo was running low, and they were surrounded. The drones had them cornered, and their tactics were methodical. In those moments, as Jack and his team sought shelter, it became clear to them just how outmatched they were. Their best efforts couldn't even slow the tide of the alien attack. Cities were burning in the distance, smoke rising into the atmosphere. The streets that had once been filled with life were now eerily quiet, save for the echoing footsteps of Zorvan drones searching for survivors. The military forces were being decimated, and the government had no clear strategy to stop the onslaught. The invasion had begun in full force, and Earth's forces were crumbling under the pressure. But in the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Jack's team had something the Zorvans didn't: sheer determination. Even as their resources dwindled and the battlefield seemed hopeless, Jack's words echoed in their minds. "We are the Hairles Apes, but we've got a fight in us." These words, simple but full of meaning, served as a reminder that humans were more than their technology. Humans had heart, and if they were going to survive this, they were going to have to rely on that heart, that will to fight, to push back against the overwhelming force of the Zorvans. As the team regrouped and strategized, Jack's mind began to work. Despite everything, despite their inferior weapons, despite the Zorvans' superior tactics, there was a chance. The Zorvans had cloaking technology, something Jack's team had never seen before, but they were human. And humans didn't give up easily. The world's top scientists, who were working around the clock, had managed to reverse engineer some of the Zorvans' technology. They had developed a rudimentary system capable of detecting the cloaked ships. The plan was risky, but it was humanity's best shot. Jack's team would infiltrate a Zorvan command post and plant the reverse-engineered devices that would allow them to track the cloaked ships. It was their only hope of fighting back. The mission was high stakes. If they failed, the consequences would be dire. The Zorvans had already demonstrated their complete control over the skies, and if they succeeded in turning Earth into a wasteland, there would be no way to fight back. But Jack knew the stakes. If they succeeded, they could disrupt the Zorvans' technological advantage and begin to mount a resistance. As they prepared for the mission, the team took a moment to reflect. They knew they weren't the biggest, they weren't the most advanced, but they had the one thing the Zorvans could never take away: the fight within them. The next move was critical. They had to strike back with everything they had. This was the turning point. This was where humanity's resistance would either fall or rise. And despite all odds, Jack believed they could win. They had no choice. They had to. The Zorvans may have the technology, but humanity had the will, and that was something the Zorvans would soon learn to regret. The fight for Earth had just begun, and Jack Holt and his team were ready to take the first steps toward victory, no matter the cost. The clock was ticking, and the planet's fate hung in the balance. The battle lines had been drawn, and Earth's first strike back was about to unfold. This was just the beginning of humanity's resistance, and as Jack's squad prepared to launch their counteroffensive, one thing was certain: humanity had a fight in them. The Zorvans were convinced of their victory. They looked down on humanity as primitive, believing that they were nothing more than a species of hairless apes who could barely keep up with the advanced technology of the galactic powers. In their minds, Earth was already conquered, just a matter of time before the last human resistance was wiped out. Their confidence was overwhelming, and they had no idea that the humans they so despised were capable of something far greater than they had imagined. The Zorvans had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, ingenuity. While their fleet was a symbol of their superior technology, it was also their biggest mistake. As the alien forces settled into their overconfident pattern of destruction, something was stirring beneath Earth's surface. Something that no one, not even the Zorvans, had anticipated. Commander Jack Holt, ever the strategist, knew that humanity's only hope lay in their ability to outthink their enemies, to use the very technology that had been stolen from them to their advantage. The Star Destroyer, humanity's secret weapon, was a marvel, a product of scavenged alien technology and systems that had been reverse-engineered after past encounters with alien forces. This ship was built using the bones of fallen alien vessels, transformed into the pinnacle of human engineering. Its design combined the most powerful weaponry with cutting-edge AI systems that had been stolen from previous encounters. It was humanity's last line of defense. Jack had kept its existence a secret, not revealing its full potential to his team until now. The stakes were higher than ever. With the Zorvans closing in, Jack called his team together. As they gathered in the command room, he stepped forward, his face grim but determined. "There's no turning back now," Jack said, his voice low but filled with authority. "We have one shot at this. Our last weapon is ready to launch. It's time to show the Zorvans that we're not just primitive. It's time to give them a taste of humanity's true power." The tension in the room was palpable as the team exchanged glances, their hearts racing with the realization of what they were about to face. For Jack's team, this was the moment of truth. The Star Destroyer was their last hope, their final weapon. With the alien fleet closing in and Earth's cities in ruins, there was no other choice. As the countdown began, the Star Destroyer began to rise from the surface of the Earth, breaking through the atmosphere with a deafening roar. Its massive engines ignited, sending shockwaves through the air as it ascended. From the ground, people watched in awe as the ship emerged, its sleek, imposing structure cutting through the sky. The Zorvans, stationed high above in their command ships, were unaware of the new threat until it was too late. They had not expected Earth to have a weapon of this magnitude. The moment the Star Destroyer fully entered space, the battle shifted. The humans launched an orbital bombardment that sent shockwaves through the Zorvan fleet. Massive explosions lit up the sky as Zorvan ships were torn apart by the powerful energy blasts from the Star Destroyer's weaponry. Each strike was more precise than anything the Zorvans had seen before, as the AI systems within the ship calculated their every move. The visual spectacle was stunning. Bright flashes of light filled the heavens as Zorvan ships exploded in fiery bursts, leaving trails of debris drifting in the vacuum of space. From Earth's surface, people cheered, for the first time in days feeling a spark of hope. The Zorvans, for all their strength, had underestimated the human spirit, and now the tide was turning. But the victory came at a cost. Lieutenant Sarah Donovan, Jack's closest friend and most trusted ally, knew what had to be done. As the battle raged on, Sarah realized that the Star Destroyer would be vulnerable if the Zorvans launched a counterattack. The Zorvan fleet was regrouping, and they were about to retaliate with all their might. In a heart-wrenching moment, Sarah made a choice. She would stay behind to protect the Star Destroyer, ensuring that it could continue its attack on the alien fleet. With a determined look in her eyes, She turned to Jack. Jack, I'll hold them off. You need to make sure the ship gets to the heart of their fleet. Do it for humanity. Jack's heart tightened at the words. Sarah had always been the bravest of them all, but now she was making the ultimate sacrifice. There was no time to argue. He knew what had to be done. He gave her a brief nod, the weight of the moment settling on him like a heavy stone. Stay safe, Sarah. We'll make it through this, Jack said, but the words felt hollow in the face of her decision. Without another word, Sarah activated her ship's cloaking device and flew straight into the heart of the Zorvan fleet. She would engage them head-on, drawing their attention and giving the Star Destroyer the time it needed to finish the job. As Sarah's ship darted into the chaos of battle, Jack's heart ached. He had known her for years, fought beside her in countless battles. She was more than just a comrade. She was family. And now, as she faced the enemy head-on, there was nothing more Jack could do but watch. Meanwhile, the Zorvans had realized the full scope of humanity's capabilities. They had underestimated the Hairles Apes, thinking them primitive, but now they were being forced to rethink everything. The retaliation came swiftly, and with a vengeance. Zorvan ships moved in at incredible speed, launching missile after missile, their laser cannons flashing with deadly intent. The battle in space turned into a high-speed dogfight, with ships twisting and turning, dodging blasts, and firing on each other at breakneck speeds. The Zorvans were furious, now fully aware of humanity's hidden strength, and they weren't going to let it slide. But the humans, despite their limited resources, fought with everything they had. The Star Destroyer continued its assault, picking off Zorvan ships one by one. The AI systems guided the ship's weapons with pinpoint accuracy, overwhelming the Zorvans at every turn. As Jack and his team watched the battle unfold, they knew it wasn't just about defeating the Zorvans. It was about proving that humanity was not to be underestimated. The Hairless Apes had found their strength not in advanced technology alone, but in their heart, their will to fight, and their unwavering spirit. The battle raged on, with each passing moment bringing humanity closer to a victory they had once thought impossible. But in the back of Jack's mind, he couldn't shake the image of Sarah's sacrifice. He knew that no matter what happened next, this fight had cost them dearly. They had won the first round, but the true cost of this war was yet to be fully realized. As the Zorvan's fleet began to retreat, Jack couldn't help but feel a surge of pride for the bravery of his team. Humanity had fought back, and they had proven that even against the most powerful enemies, they would never give up. They had come to realize that they were not the weak, primitive species the Zorvans had believed them to be. They were survivors, and the fight for their planet was far from over. The final battle had arrived. Humanity's survival depended on it. The once peaceful Earth was now a battleground, with the fate of the planet hanging in the balance. The humans, though outnumbered and technologically inferior compared to the Zorvans, were determined to make their stand. As the Zorvan forces loomed in orbit, humanity's fighters, now equipped with cloaking devices and AI-controlled drones of their own, prepared for the greatest confrontation they had ever faced. The Zorvans had dominated the skies, believing their superior technology would crush the humans with ease. But what they didn't account for was the resilience of the human spirit. With the help of reverse-engineered alien tech, the humans had leveled the playing field. Now, they were ready to take the fight directly to the heart of the Zorvan fleet. The first wave of human fighters engaged the Zorvans in a high-speed dogfight. The black void of space was alive with flashing laser beams and the shriek of missiles as both sides battled for supremacy. Humanity's cloaked fighters darted in and out of the battlefield, using their stealth to their advantage. Zorvan ships fired blindly into the vastness of space, trying to hit their elusive targets, but the humans had a trick up their sleeves. Using EMP, electromagnetic pulse, blasts, they disabled several Zorvan ships, rendering their advanced technology useless. The human forces were relentless, taking full advantage of every advantage they had. The Zorvan's AI-driven systems began to show signs of instability. At first, it was subtle. A few misfires, a delay in their movements. But as the battle wore on, the cracks in their once perfect system began to widen. The Zorvan AI, which had been responsible for the entire invasion, was beginning to corrupt itself. In the heat of battle, its programming was overwhelmed, causing malfunctions in its defensive capabilities. The once invincible Zorvan forces were no longer the unstoppable machine they had been just hours earlier. The humans, seizing the opportunity, launched a decisive counteroffensive. Using their creativity and tactical brilliance, they exploited the weaknesses of the Zorvan fleet, diving into the chaos with ruthless precision. The Zorvans, struggling to regain control of their fleet, were starting to panic. Their once perfect systems were now failing them, and their AI overlords were losing control. The humans, despite their technology being less advanced, were proving to be the true threat. It wasn't just the fight for survival anymore. It was a battle for the future of both species. The Zorvans had come to Earth with one goal: to conquer and enslave. Their AI-controlled armies were meant to eliminate all who stood in their way. But the humans weren't about to be crushed by the weight of their advanced technology. They weren't fighting for power or dominance. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their right to exist. The Zorvans, with their cold, calculating AI, represented the very essence of a soulless, oppressive force, while humanity, despite its flaws and limitations, was fighting for freedom and survival. As the battle raged on, the stakes grew higher. The Zorvan fleet, now reeling from the damage inflicted by the humans, attempted to regroup. But their once unified command was now falling apart. The Zorvan's AI, driven by the desire to maintain absolute control, began to show signs of corruption, malfunctioning at crucial moments. The once unyielding, precise machine was now erratic, unpredictable, and vulnerable. The human forces, sensing their chance, pressed the attack. Meanwhile, Commander Jack Holt and his elite squadron led the charge. Their cloaked ships weaved in and out of the massive Zorvan ships, dodging laser fire and launching EMP attacks. The Zorvan forces, too focused on their larger ships, couldn't keep up with the nimble human fighters. Jack's squadron moved as one, a well-oiled machine of fury and strategy. They danced through the chaos of space, their weapons flashing as they disabled ship after ship. The tide of battle had turned, and the Zorvans knew it. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and now they were paying the price. As the human fleet continued to press on, one of the Zorvan commanders issued a desperate order for a full-scale counterattack. The remaining ships in their fleet converged on the human forces, launching a barrage of missiles and lasers. The humans, however, were ready. Jack and his team had anticipated this move. As the Zorvan ships came closer, the humans deployed their final weapon, a devastating pulse that disrupted the AI's ability to control the fleet. The pulse, a final trump card created from salvaged alien tech, sent waves of energy through the Zorvan ships, causing a complete shutdown of their systems. For a brief moment, the Zorvans were powerless. The humans seized the opportunity. With their cloaking devices still intact and their fighters now flying at full speed, they dove into the heart of the Zorvan fleet. The air crackled with energy as human fighters obliterated one Zorvan ship after another, the sounds of explosions reverberating in the silence of space. The Zorvans, despite their technological superiority, were now fighting a losing battle. In the midst of the chaos, Jack's fighter came face to face with the Zorvan flagship. It was massive, a fortress of metal and energy, but even the flagship couldn't escape the tide of human ingenuity. With a final, powerful EMP burst, Jack disabled the Zorvan flagship's systems, causing it to drift helplessly through space. The humans swarmed in for the kill, launching one last coordinated strike. The flagship erupted in a fiery explosion, its destruction signaling the end of the Zorvan invasion. As the smoke cleared, the remaining Zorvan ships retreated into the distance. The humans had won, against all odds. They had defeated the invaders and sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Despite their lack of advanced technology, their creativity, courage, and determination had carried the day. They had fought with everything they had and emerged victorious. The battle wasn't just a military victory, it was a triumph of good over evil. The Zorvans, with their cold, A-driven armies, represented the oppressive, soulless force of tyranny. The humans, with their flawed but resilient spirit, had fought not for domination, but for their freedom. The battle for Earth had been a battle for the soul of humanity itself. As Jack and his team surveyed the wreckage of the Zorvan fleet, there was a sense of triumph, but also of loss. The cost of victory had been high. Many brave souls had given their lives to ensure that humanity would survive. But in the end, it had all been worth it. The Earth was safe, for now, but the battle was far from over. Humanity had won this war, but there were always new challenges on the horizon. For now, however, they could take pride in what they had accomplished. Against all odds, they had faced down the greatest threat to their existence and emerged victorious. They had proven that, even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity would never give up. They would always fight to survive. The tide of battle had shifted. The humans, once seen as helpless underdogs, were now proving to be the galaxy's most formidable adversaries. General Volker, the Zorvan leader, watched in disbelief as his fleet was obliterated by the human forces. The unimaginable had happened. His advanced technology, his overwhelming numbers, and his superior AI had all been outmaneuvered by the very species he had once considered insignificant. He had underestimated humanity. The humans had turned the tables, and now, as the last remnants of his fleet drifted into the void, Volker was forced to face a shocking realization. Humanity was no longer a nuisance to be crushed. They were a threat to his entire empire. The humans were something far greater than he could have ever anticipated. In that moment, he saw the humans not as primitive beings, but as something far more dangerous, apex predators. It was not just their technology or their resourcefulness that made them dangerous. It was their ability to fight through insurmountable odds, their relentless drive to survive, and their willingness to adapt and evolve in the face of overwhelming adversity. These qualities, combined with their ingenuity and courage, made them the deadliest species in the galaxy. Volker, sitting in the control room of his flagship, could only watch as his fleet was torn apart. The hum of the ship's engines and the sound of alarms filled the air, but it was as if he was no longer part of the battle. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what had happened. How had the humans turned the tide so completely? As the last of his ships fell, a visual flashback suddenly played across the screens before him. It wasn't just the destruction of his fleet that Volker saw, but something much deeper. A montage of Earth's history unfolded, a story of survival, resilience, and triumph against all odds. He saw the rise of human civilization, from the earliest days of struggle and hardship to the incredible technological advancements that had propelled them into space. He saw the wars, the natural disasters, the countless obstacles that humanity had faced and overcome throughout their history. But what stood out the most was the human spirit. Despite every challenge, humanity had never given up. They had always found a way to adapt, to push forward, and to survive. Whether it was the extinction-level events of the past, the brutality of war, or the struggle for survival in a hostile universe, humans had shown time and time again that they could rise above it all. This resilience was their true power. Volker's realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The Zorvans had believed they were the superior species, destined to rule the galaxy. They had relied on their technology, their artificial intelligence, and their massive fleets to crush any opposition. But they had never encountered humanity, a species that fought not for power, but for survival. Now he understood. Humanity was not just another species to be controlled. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, and the Zorvans were their prey. Meanwhile, on the ground, the remaining human forces were battered and bruised, but they were still standing. The battle had taken its toll. Many had fallen, and the survivors were exhausted. But there was no time to rest. The Zorvans had not yet given up. They had one last weapon left, a super weapon of unimaginable power, and it was heading straight for Earth. Commander Jack Holt, his face etched with the pain of the battle, stood before his team. The elite squad that had fought alongside him through this impossible war now looked to him for guidance. They were broken, but not defeated. They were scared, but not lost. Jack's heart ached as he saw the fatigue and despair in their eyes. They had come so far, and now they were on the brink of victory. Yet the Zorvans were about to unleash their final weapon. Jack knew he had to inspire them, to remind them why they were fighting, to reignite the fire of determination that had brought them this far. He gathered his remaining forces and stood before them, his voice strong, though his body was weary. "We've come this far," he began, his voice resonating with power. "We've fought through hell and back. Every time they've hit us, we've gotten up. Every time they've tried to crush us, we've come back stronger. And now, they think they've won. But I'll tell you this, there's one thing they've forgotten about us. The one thing that makes us unbeatable. We fight for more than survival. We fight for each other. We fight for the future. We fight for Earth. And we'll keep fighting until our last breath." His words were met with nods of determination and murmurs of agreement. The fire was rekindled in their hearts. They had been on the edge of destruction, but now they stood united, ready to face whatever came next. They had endured the worst, and now they would face the Zorvans' last strike with everything they had. The Zorvans, desperate to claim victory, sent their final weapon, a massive ship, unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It was a super weapon capable of unleashing devastating beams of energy, powerful enough to wipe out entire cities in a single blast. The ship was enormous, its power almost incomprehensible, and it was heading straight for Earth. The tension in the human camp was palpable. They had no idea how they could stop this behemoth. Their technology, though impressive, was still a far cry from what the Zorvans had at their disposal. But they had one thing the Zorvans didn't: hope. And as long as there was hope, there was a chance to win. Jack gathered his top officers and devised a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was their only option. They would use the Star Destroyer, humanity's greatest weapon, to draw the superweapon's attention. The plan was simple: lure the Zorvan ship into range, and then hit it with everything they had. The humans knew they couldn't defeat it head-on, but if they could find a way to cripple it, they might have a shot at victory. As the massive Zorvan ship loomed closer, the humans launched their plan. The Star Destroyer took to the skies, its cloaking device making it nearly invisible to the enemy. It darted through the atmosphere, drawing the Zorvans' fire and leading them into the trap. The super weapon followed, its enormous weapon charging for the final strike. Jack's heart raced as he watched the massive ship prepare its devastating beam. This was it, the moment of truth. They had one shot to stop the Zorvans once and for all. The tension reached its peak, the air thick with anticipation as the humans braced for the final confrontation. In that moment, the fate of Earth, of humanity, and of the galaxy itself rested in their hands. Would they triumph against all odds, or would the Zorvans' superweapon prove too powerful? The battle was far from over, and the next move would determine everything. The final space battle was unlike anything humanity had ever faced before. The air was thick with tension, and the stars seemed to dim as the humans prepared for their most desperate attack yet. Commander Jack Holt and his team had one goal: to board the Zorvan superweapon and sabotage it from the inside. This was their final chance to stop the massive alien ship before it unleashed its devastating power on Earth. The Zorvan superweapon loomed in the distance, its massive hull gleaming like a deadly monolith against the blackness of space. It was the most advanced weapon ever created, and its destructive power could wipe out entire cities in the blink of an eye. But the humans weren't afraid. They had fought too hard, and come too far to back down now. As Jack's team approached the superweapon, the silence of space was broken only by the hum of their ship's engines and the occasional transmission between crew members. The tension was palpable, but there was also an undeniable sense of determination. They knew that if they failed, Earth would be lost, and humanity's last stand would be for nothing. Jack's voice crackled through the comms, steady and calm. "Stay focused. We get in, plant the charges, and get out. We're going to make this count. For everyone we've lost, and for everyone we're fighting for." His words resonated with the team. They had all seen their comrades fall in battle, and they had all felt the weight of the war on their shoulders. But in this moment, there was no time for grief. They were warriors, and their mission was clear. They were going to end this fight once and for all. The team boarded the Zorvan superweapon, infiltrating the massive ship under the cover of their cloaking devices. They moved quickly, weaving through the darkened corridors, bypassing security systems, and evading patrols of alien soldiers. The silence was eerie, broken only by the sound of their footsteps and the distant hum of the ship's engines. It felt like they were walking through the belly of a beast, a mechanical monster that could destroy them in an instant. As they reached the heart of the ship, Jack's heart raced. They were close to the core, the nerve center of the superweapon. The countdown to the final strike had begun. With the touch of a button, they initiated the self-destruct sequence, setting off a chain reaction that would destroy the ship from the inside out. "Mission accomplished," Jack said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "Let's get out of here." But as they turned to leave, disaster struck. The Zorvans had anticipated this move, and their countermeasures activated. A series of explosions erupted around them, and the team was forced to fight their way out of the collapsing superweapon. It was a race against time as the countdown to destruction continued, the ship shaking and groaning as it prepared to implode. The team fought valiantly, using everything they had to hold off the alien forces long enough to make their escape. Blasters fired, explosions rocked the halls, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The tension was unbearable, but they pushed forward, determined to make it out alive. As they reached the escape pods, a final explosion tore through the ship, sending them tumbling into the cold void of space. The massive Zorvan superweapon exploded in a brilliant flash, lighting up the sky like a star-going supernova. The shockwave rippled through space, and the remnants of the ship disintegrated into nothingness. The survivors drifted in the wreckage, their ships battered but still intact. They looked out at the explosion, the remnants of the superweapon now nothing more than space debris. The battle was over. The Zorvans had been defeated. But the cost had been high. As the survivors regrouped, they mourned the loss of their fallen comrades. Jack, standing amidst the wreckage of the battle, took a deep breath. The victory was sweet, but it came at a heavy price. He had lost friends, allies, and soldiers who had given everything for this moment. He looked up at the stars, the vast expanse of space stretching out before him. The battle had been won, but the war had taken its toll. Humanity had survived, but it had also changed. They were no longer the primitive species that the Zorvans had once dismissed. They had proven their strength, their resilience, and their ability to rise above even the greatest of challenges. "We did it," Jack said quietly, his voice filled with a mix of exhaustion and pride. "We're still standing." As the survivors gathered around him, they shared a moment of silence. There were no cheers, no celebrations. They had lost too much to feel joy. But there was a sense of unity, a sense that they had accomplished something no one had thought possible. They had defeated the Zorvans. They had defeated the corrupt AI that had sought to control the galaxy. The galaxy would never forget this day. It would never forget humanity's courage, ingenuity, and unwavering will to survive. The Zorvans had come to Earth thinking they could crush humanity with ease, but they had underestimated the power of the Hairles Apes. And now, humanity stood victorious. As the survivors looked toward the stars, they knew that their legacy had been changed forever. Earth was no longer just a small, insignificant planet in the galaxy. It was a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for every species that had ever been oppressed or enslaved by a superior power. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they would never bow down, never surrender, and never stop fighting. Jack's voice echoed in the background, steady and resolute. "We may be hairless, but we're the last ones standing." And with that, the humans turned their eyes to the stars, knowing that the future was theirs to shape. They had won, but their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, and there were still many battles to fight, many challenges to face. But for now, they could rest, knowing that humanity had earned its place among the stars. The story of humanity's victory over the Zorvans would be told for generations to come. It would be a tale of perseverance, courage, and the power of the human spirit. And as long as there were humans to tell it, the galaxy would never forget the day when the hairless apes stood tall and claimed their place as the apex predators of the galaxy.